Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Up front this week, professionals in mental health and criminal justice talked about ways to improve treatment at a New Mexico State University conference. Michael Hernandez was there.
For people with mental health disorders, it can be difficult to get proper treatment, and even more so in prison. Gabe, a former inmate who asked we not disclose his full name or the nature of his crimes, says he was recently diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from his time behind bars. Gabe says once he entered the criminal justice system, he kept his emotions bottled up and his experiences to himself.
The experiences, when you see your friends get murdered and your next door neighbor, so to speak, your next door sales guys getting raped, and you have to suppress that and not speak to anybody about that. I believe it's a heavy burden to carry.
Gabe describes himself as getting lost in the cracks while serving his time. He says he didn't seek mental health treatment because prisoners see receiving help as being weak. Some also view it as a chance to snitch on other inmates.
So when I got out, I just finagled my way through the system, through the POs. I told them what they wanted to hear, and they kind of let me off easy. And as a result of that, I kind of cheated myself. I didn't get the proper treatment, and round two started.
NMSU's Criminal Justice Honor Society Alpha Phi Sigma recently hosted experts in the mental health and criminal justice systems to discuss improving treatment for people like Gabe. It's a personal topic for Democratic State Senator Mary Kay Papin, and one of the reasons she says she ran for office. Papin says her grandson was diagnosed with schizophrenia as a teenager.
He's been homeless. He has been in jail. He has been in the state hospital. He's been in board and care. So it's sort of this revolving door that we're not providing the services out there for people with mental health problems, severe mental health problems. We're not providing the wraparound services that they need in order to live a decent life.
The state legislature passed the Assisted Outpatient Treatment Act in 2016. Papin co-sponsored the bill, which authorizes patients likely to harm themselves or others to receive court-ordered treatment. Papin says her daughter travels from Ruidoso to Las Vegas once a week to visit her grandson, but says many families abandon loved ones with severe mental illness.
She goes once a week to make sure that she's tracking with him and seeing how he is and what he's doing, and so I think that's important, but that's not true of all people with families, because it does become exhausting for families. So it's but this is not something that people with mental illness choose. They don't choose to be ill.
Doñana County Health and Human Services Director Jamie Michael says stigma is a common factor why people get stuck in the revolving door.
People don't often ask for help or acknowledge that they or someone close to them has a mental health disorder because of the fear of stigma. So we need to overcome that. We support people when they have a diagnosis of diabetes or a diagnosis of cancer. So we need to make sure that we're looking at mental illness in the same light and be there to support people and help connect them to resources.
More than 2.3 million people in the U.S. are in prison or jail, according to 2018 Prison Policy Initiative data. That includes nearly 8,000 New Mexico state prisoners, which the State Sentencing Commission projects to keep rising through the next decade. A 2016 paper by the Treatment Advocacy Center, a mental illness research nonprofit, estimates 20% of inmates in jails and 15% of inmates in state prisons have a serious mental illness. While data shows people with mental health disorders are overrepresented in prison, Michael says there are limits to the quality of care they can receive behind bars. That's why it's important to focus on early intervention and prevention. She says the county's Stepping Up initiative, a jail diversion program, and resources like the state's crisis line and mental health first aid classes are essential toward helping people with untreated mental illness.
It's the untreated that causes the problem, not necessarily the illness. It's a disease of the brain. It's not something that we should blame them for or shame them for.
Gabe, who was released last year and is attending school to become a barber, says treating inmates with dignity will help improve their mental health and reduce recidivism rates.
I think we just have to have a better understanding and not just look at us as a number or as a statistic, or we're filling up this much bed space. You know, the reality is we're all coming out to the streets. So I believe that getting to know the people on the caseloads is extremely important, because just that one visit that you make with them can make a difference, and that person opening up, and it can save him from another trip to prison or a violation.
Saving people from going to prison is something that can give those in and out of the criminal justice system peace of mind. For KRWG, I'm Michael Hernandez.
Welcome to In Focus. I'm Anthony Morneau. Our guest today is Giovanna Rossi. She is head of Family Friendly New Mexico. The organization works to increase the number of businesses that provide family-friendly policies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start off with a pretty general question. What is your organization's idea of a family-friendly business?
Sure. So Family Friendly New Mexico basically actually defined what family friendly means through a whole process that took a lot of time and a lot of input. And we came up with a pretty good, all-encompassing definition of family-friendly, which means that it includes paid leave, and that there are lots of things underneath paid leave. It includes different kinds of economic support, so higher than average wages in your industry, help with retirement, educational assistance. There's lots of options under that category. And then the third category is work schedules. So that would include flexible scheduling, predictable scheduling, telecommuting, different kinds of flexible scheduling. And the fourth area is health support. So health insurance, wellness programs, breastfeeding and lactation support, those kinds of things.
You mentioned in that paid leave.
Mm-hmm.
What are the studies show? What is the research showing how important that is just for the employee? I'd like to touch on the economic impact it may have later, but just on the employee.
Yeah, so we know that paid leave really, really helps families. It not only, we're seeing the real connection between paid leave and early childhood as well. And so babies are able to bond with their moms when their moms have paid leave, because they can do more of the one-on-one breastfeeding, those kinds of things in those early months. And while businesses with 50 or more employees have FMLA, the federal mandate, that really only covers unpaid leave. And that's unpaid leave for up to 12 weeks. And I don't know that many women or parents who can really take unpaid leave. It's just not really feasible for our families in New Mexico. So we really want to encourage businesses to look at their paid leave policies in this program, and it's one of very many different policies that we look at.
I would think that this seems like such an important issue because there are so many women in the workforce that are dependent on paid leave. I guess we're talking nearly half of the workforce in New Mexico. So, I mean, this, without paid leave, does this leave many women employees with some very tough choices?
Yeah, frankly, it really does. So we know that over half, close to sort of 70% of young children in New Mexico, 0 to 6 years old, have all of their parents in the workforce, whether that's both parents or the single mom or whoever it is, but all their parents are in the workforce. And so really supporting families to have a work-life balance so that they can really fulfill their responsibilities with their children and their families and their work is what this is all about, and at the same time stimulating New Mexico's economy, because by doing this we actually support businesses to attract highly qualified and loyal employees.
And I guess there is that economic impact as well. If people don't have to worry about losing money and have that income coming in, wouldn't that be put back into the economy as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You know, the more we can keep our employees on the job healthy and not worried about, you know, going to work sick and all of those issues, and knowing what their schedule is. That's a really big one with service industry workers, is predictable scheduling. So knowing that you're going to knowing what your schedule is for the next 2 weeks is really, really important.
That seems like something that, you know, many people may take for granted, but if you work in the service industry, you're constantly waiting week by week possibly to know what your schedule's looking at. How is New Mexico doing in that field, you know, with the service industry and figuring that out?
You know, that industry has been a challenge for us to draw into our program, I think because of those scheduling issues. But the more businesses we get into our program, the more we can showcase how other businesses are doing it. I just met with, here in Las Cruces yesterday, Beck's Coffee, and they applied for the award. They're in our program now. They have, you know, 4 part-time employees and 1 full-time employee, and they somehow figure out predictable scheduling for their for mostly student employees. But they have a way of figuring it out, and sometimes it's not that the business doesn't want to do it or that it's really too hard. It's that they just don't know how. They don't have the tools. They frankly don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to sit down and figure it out. They're just trying to make ends meet as a small business. So the more we can showcase small businesses that are doing it and doing it well, the better it is for other businesses to learn from them.
Let's talk about the award. Tell us about the award, and, you know, what does a business have to do to be considered in the running for that?
Yeah, sure. So we run a statewide family-friendly business award program that if you apply online at our web address, nmfamilyfriendlybusiness.com, it's completely free to apply right now. You can go on and fill out a series of questions in those 4 broad categories: paid leave, work support, health support, and economic support. And once you fill in those questions, you immediately find out which level of award you get. And we don't reject any business. We figure if you're interested enough to come and and fill out the application, we're going to meet you where you are and work with you. So you might fall in at the bronze level, which is the lowest level. You might have 1 or 2 policies in place. Or you could meet the silver level, which is any 3 policies. Or the highest level is the gold level, which means you have at least 1 policy in each of those 4 categories.
Well, let's break down some of those policies. I mean, what are you looking for, your organization is looking for to be able to win that gold level?
Yeah, so to be at the gold level, you really need at least 1 policy in each of the 4 broad categories. So that means you could be offering some kind of paid leave, you could be offering health insurance, and have higher than average wages in your industry, and, you know, offer some kind of flexible scheduling, and you would qualify at that gold level. And there are different configurations because there are 15 different policies. I mentioned some of them already: predictable scheduling, retirement accounts, educational assistance, all kinds of things. We even have some businesses that have on-site or near-site childcare help. And so to get that highest level, you really need just 1 policy in each of those 4 areas. And if listeners or viewers want to find out exactly what those are, they can go to the website and it's all on there. You can see what the different policies are.
Health insurance, paid health benefits. I mean, how does this impact New Mexico right now? What are some of the statistics, or, you know, your idea of of where New Mexico really is right now as far as businesses even offering health benefits?
So it's definitely a challenge depending on the size of the business, but it's very interesting. The more we talk to businesses about what kinds of health supports they're offering their employees, they're getting really creative and really coming up with some interesting models of how to do it. And so if they're not offering actual health insurance, then they're offering, time off to go to the doctor, or some businesses are, like offering help on an as needed basis in terms of cash, so they're really thinking about how they can support their employees as far as health.
Those are some ways that some businesses could be supportive with health benefits if they're not offering health insurance.
Yeah.
It has to be a challenge if you have a small business and you just have a handful of employees. What are some of the things that, if people are only paying a minimum wage, what are some of the things that they could do to really boost, not only their employees' productivity, but also keep their employees and have lower turnover rate? What are some of the things that you're seeing with businesses?
Oh gosh, we're seeing all kinds of really creative things. One that I already mentioned, Beck's Coffee here in Las Cruces, they're offering their employees up to $600 a year in either cash or products to help with their community involvement. So if you're on a board or if you're helping with a community project and you need either time to go do that or products from the coffee shop, I understand, I don't know all the details, but that's how it was explained, then they support their employees to be involved in the community. So if you're an employee at a coffee shop and your employer is helping you do this, you're going to be way more loyal to them. And if you need to cover a shift, you're going to really try hard to cover that shift when someone else is out or something. So it creates this really tight bond and this family kind of feeling in these very small businesses.
But it also seems like it could do something for the community as well. It really shows a business in a whole new light within a community. Wouldn't that in itself help grow a business?
Yeah, definitely. So there is the consumer aspect to this, which is that consumers are more and more interested in how businesses are treating their employees. And so we've seen examples of that, in national news where big stores, chains are offering a private space for their employees to breastfeed or pump, and for customers to do that too. I'm way more likely to shop there than I am at a big store that isn't offering that and also isn't, paying good wages. So that is having an impact as well. We're hearing more and more from consumers that they want businesses where they shop and spend their dollars. They want those businesses to be treating workers well.
You spend a lot of time up north. You're here in southern New Mexico. What are some of the things that you see here in this area that you feel could really help businesses become more family friendly?
Yeah, well, it's been great to be in Las Cruces for a couple of days. I've had some really great conversations with business leaders here about partnering with our program. Very interesting things that are going on here. The New Mexico Green Chamber, we're working on a partnership with them. The city of Las Cruces is actually the first awardee in the Las Cruces area in our program, and I met with the mayor while I've been here to discuss a partnership with the city of Las Cruces. We see, and I think the mayor agrees, that this could be a great model for the city of Las Cruces to take on and showcase and say we're a family-friendly city. And that is not only good for business, but it's good for the people. So it's just a win-win.
Are there any other cities in the state that are family-friendly cities and have that designation?
Yeah, so Farmington was actually the first, interestingly, and then the city of Albuquerque. We're working with the new mayor, Mayor Tim Keller, there on that, and then now Las Cruces. So we have 3 family-friendly cities in New Mexico. This time last year we had none. So we're very encouraged by that, and we have a big mayor's race in Santa Fe, as you know, and we're working with those candidates to make sure that whoever's the mayor, we definitely want to bring Santa Fe on board as well.
You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, and we just have like a couple minutes left, but salary raises, how important are you finding, that is for a business and employees and keeping employees?
So higher than average wages in the industry is one of our policies that if you offer higher than average wages, you can qualify, in that category. But it's interesting, there have been some national studies just released that show that employees actually would rather have great benefits than more money. Now, of course, you have to pick that apart and see exactly what that means, but we are seeing that employees really value quality of life, flexibility, work with me when I need to go and pick my kid up from school. I'm going to get the job done, trust me. That's the relationship, that we're seeing develop.
And it seems, very interesting stuff that you're bringing up here, and we look forward to learning more about what your organization is involved with here in southern New Mexico and Las Cruces. Giovanna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We want to thank you for joining us for another episode of In Focus. I'm Anthony Moreno.
It was founded by a Rhode Island gentleman named Roland Hazard III, who was traveling out to Santa Barbara and had car trouble in La Luz and had to wait for parts and fell in love with the region, which doesn't surprise me. And he discovered the clay here was comparable to the best terracotta clays in Italy. In 1920, they consolidated their 5 chemical companies into one and renamed it Allied Chemical and Dye, which of course later became Honeywell. So that kind of gives people a sense of how prominent the Hazards were. They're one of the founding Rhode Island families. As best I can tell, this is the last surviving industrial downdraft ceramic kiln left in the United States. This is it. And a downdraft kiln is a very specific type of kiln where the heat is drawn down from the top of the kiln through the floor and then under and out. That evens out the heat, keeps the bottom of the kiln as warm as the top would get. This would be fired at about 2,000 degrees for close to a week. Of course, everything vented up this big stack. It's about a 12 by 12 space inside that can be completely filled with ceramics. And as you will be able to see, about 4,000 of the roof tiles from the last firing of the kiln are still in there. They produced a huge number of pots. There were some 100 identifiable shapes or models of pots, simple plates and cups through ceramic bells and everything else you can imagine. And of course the roof tiles, they were the principal roofing for St. Joseph's Apache Mission in Mescalero. Several of the buildings on main campus, Milton Hall and Kent Hall, have La Luz tile roofs. La Luz Pottery was marketed through a main office in 52nd Street and Park Avenue in New York, marketed to some 44 states and 4 foreign countries. There's a lot of La Luz pottery all over the country. They would stamp them with their official logo, the back-to-back capital L with a candle flame, and that was a registered trademark. Quality and the color of the clay this very distinctive red terracotta clay is pretty unique. And I think the reason the pottery didn't survive was largely that there were other commercial tile producing businesses in New Mexico that produced mission tiles mechanically. The noteworthy aspect of La Luz tiles was that they were handmade. Downtown Alamogordo, and they have some displays there about the pottery also.
So this was kind of a unique thing that this Roland Hazard had a dream about and started up. It's an interesting thing because New Mexico is known for its Native American pottery, but American art pottery in this state is not that common. In fact, I don't know of another American art pottery factory at all. I think it's a very interesting factor that we have this.
Roland was a very heavy-duty alcoholic, was one of the principal inspirations for Bill Wilson, who went on to found Alcoholics Anonymous. Members of AA know who Roland H. is, but he never really escaped that scourge of alcoholism. I'm well aware of quite a bit of this because Roland also happens to be my third cousin. We've renovated the interior, removing the residential additions to leave two large open rooms, that one of which we hope we'll be able to put into use as a small pottery studio, and hopefully we'll be able to recruit local potters to do demonstrations, particularly for the school kids. And we're going to be able to preserve the 230 acres of the natural environment surrounding it too. Visiting La Luz Pottery is pretty easy. Typically, throughout most of the year, I do a guided tour on Saturdays every other weekend. And to add your name to an upcoming tour is to call the Tularosa Basin Historical Museum.
That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition 5 to 9, Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now, noon to 2, and All Things Considered 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Email us with your story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Fred Martino. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.